Hi, good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to share data from our nearshore and offshore surveys. And first, before we really dive in, I wanted to take a moment to thank our partners for their assistance in helping us complete this work. So as many of us are, and as many of you know, we have been short-staffed. So OMNR actually provided us with 2 technicians to help complete both the nearshore and offshore survey portions that occur in Canadian waters. So their technicians helped us with not only sorting catches and helping with the gear and getting everything completed, but also with the challenges of the more remote North Shore area and helping us complete anchor watches. They fit right in with the crew, and also additional thanks to both Fritz and Corey for coming out and helping us on day trips with catch processing. And before we dive even further in, I just want to set up a little mini float plan so you know what to expect. So we're going to start with the nearshore survey. It occurs first in the year, and it's a little more diverse in catch. Then we'll dive into the offshore. For each section, we'll start at more broad overview of the fish community, and then we'll dive in a little deeper to select species. Then we'll break it out further by covering larval fish and age 1 cragonines. As soon as I can figure this out, will be great. Okay, there we go. Now we're on a roll. So during the 2025 nearshore and offshore surveys, we sampled a total of 108 stations across Lake Superior. All 36 of the offshore stations that you see here on the map shown in blue, so those are the ones more centrally located in the lake in the offshore region, those were all completed, and 72 of the planned 78 nearshore stations were also completed. You can see stations that were not sampled in this map shown with unique symbols. Those of you in the back, I apologize, you may not be able to see it as easily. It is also shown in the annual report, which, just so you know, is in the very final review step process to get it posted. Station 85 that you see outlined in the triangle near Keweenaw Bay, that is actually going to be dropped from our survey. It has a propensity to absolutely shred our bottom trawls, regardless if we use standard or roller. So it is also sampled inconsistently in the past. So we're going to drop it from the survey. Other issues that occurred, we snapped a door chain over in Port Wing, Wisconsin in the western region. Corey can attest that was a very fun day, which also resulted in us dropping station 187 in the western arm, the Big Carp River, so we could do the much needed repair so we could further survey and complete the entire survey. In Whitefish Bay, station 174, that you can see right there. There were nets in the region and throughout our transect, so we dropped that station. As you can see, there are 3 others in Whitefish Bay. The reason that we have so many stations in Whitefish Bay is for instances like this. If there is commercial fishing gear or nets in the area, we can drop it and we have other stations, so it's not going to be a gap. Along the North Shore and in the Canadian waters, so you can see here, down in this region, and here we have 2 that are circled in black. Those were dropped for time. Along that North Shore region, again, it's a little more remote, so we do often fall against time restrictions. So we, in the future moving forward, are going to rotationally abort stations as needed along that North Shore, which typically tallies up to about 2 per survey. But by rotating them, we're not always dropping the same station every single year. So now we'll go into the nearshore survey, which does have a more diverse catch as compared to the offshore. Overall, fish biomass was higher than last year, with a mean biomass of 7.6 kilograms per hectare, putting it above the current 10-year period average. This is higher than last year, which was 3.7 kilograms per hectare, but less than the biomass boom that we saw in 2023 that had 18.3 kilograms per hectare. 2025 was the second highest mean biomass since 2010 for the nearshore survey. The top 3 stations with highest biomass during the 2025 Nearshore Survey include Station 86, Basswood Island in the Apostle Islands, which filled 3 fish boxes and was dominated by 84.3 kilograms of Cisco, 23.5 kilograms of lake whitefish, and 6.9 kilograms of bloater. Station 209 near Munising, it was dominated by both Cisco and bloater. Station 460 Goulet River filled nearly 5 5-gallon buckets of Cisco. And it was notable that unlike last year, no alewife were caught at Station 461, which is Pancake Point. So now if we narrow down just a small amount and we portion out by species, here we see bloater in yellow, Cisco in orange, lake whitefish in fuchsia, and rainbow smelt in blue. We can see increases in each as compared to the mean biomass that was encountered in 2024. The mean biomass density of the 3 carrageenans combined was 3.7 kilograms per hectare, which was lower than the 14 kilograms per hectare estimated in 2023. Mean biomass density of rainbow smelt was 2.4 kilograms per hectare, and all other species combined was 1.5. This is the second highest combined biomass for these species since 2010. And if we now focus on the carrageenans, we can see the mean biomass density for bloater was 0.5 kilograms per hectare in the top panel, and lake whitefish at 0.8 kilograms per hectare in the bottom panel. Both are below the long-term averages, while Cisco at 2.4 kilograms per hectare are slightly above the long-term average. It is important to note, however, that as the 2022 cohort is maturing and it's becoming it'll move to more pelagic habitat, we are less likely to encounter them in our bottom trawl sampling year. Mean rainbow smelt biomass was 2.4 kilograms per hectare in 2025, as you can see here in the bar plot, which was the second highest since 2000. And the highest numbers of rainbow smelt were found in the Black Bay region along the North Shore, with relatively lower catches along the South Shore and portions of the North Shore outside of Nipigon Bay. Here are some species of interest. So if we pull out just these 5, from the top to bottom of each bar, we have burbot in yellow, which I will also give you the 2025 densities here. So 2025 burbot was 0.1 kilograms per hectare. Long-nosed sucker you can see in orange, they were at 0.5 kilograms per hectare. 9-spine stickleback in peach were 0.1 kilogram per hectare. Pygmy whitefish at 0.05 in pink, and trout perch were 0.2 kilograms per hectare in fuchsia. All increased in biomass density from the previous year. And the combined biomass of these 5 is the 3rd highest since 2010. And you can see we did have quite an increase in 9-spine stickleback as well, as was noted by Ralph with Lake Michigan. Now, if we look at exotic species, we caught 81 3-spine stickleback, 24 rough, and 7 alewife in 2025 Nearshore Survey. This was the 3rd highest combined biomass for these 3 since 2010. Noting that the mean biomass does remain low at less than 0.01 kilograms per hectare, though. Alewife were down from last year, and none were encountered again at Pancake Point, where 98 were caught in 2024. However, 3-spine catch was up from all previous years. They are the black bar, or the black portion of the bar there. So just to draw a little focus on 3-spine, our survey is not focused nor designed to monitor 3-spine stickleback. However, I did want to mention that while the estimated biomass is low at just above 0.002 kilograms per hectare, we have started to encounter more of them in recent years and of more various sizes. The distribution of the catch data for 3-spine in the 2025 Nearshore Survey is shown here. The highest numbers were caught in Nipigon Bay, with 24 caught in the western station, 32 in the middle station, 7 at the eastern station, and 1 at the southwestern station. Other regions, 12 were caught down at Pancake Point, with 3 caught in Whitefish Bay, 1 in Keweenaw Bay, and 1 in Superior Entry. And if we look at the length frequency data, here you can see year on the y-axis and total length in millimeters along the x. You can see that some of these 3 spines are likely reaching maturity. And this is concerning, as 3 spine have been found to prey on lake whitefish eggs in other studies. So transitioning into the offshore survey now, here's our view from being anchored out at Superior Shoal. Mean fish biomass in 2025 was the highest since the survey began in 2011, and this was at 9.1 kilograms per hectare. Here's a table of all of the species that were caught during the 2025 offshore survey. And as you can see, 99% of our catch is composed of deepwater sculpin, kai, and Siskiwet lake trout, with a sprinkling of other species from pygmy whitefish, burbot, other sculpin species, to 2 short-nosed cisco. And if we look at the biomass at individual stations, we can see that it is variable, with the highest biomass of fish caught at station 2139, and this is located in the north central region of the lake. Other higher biomass stations were off of Alona in the eastern region, off of the Poplar River in the northwestern region, and in the south central area as well. And if we zoom into particular species, deepwater sculpin biomass was the second highest since the survey began at 3.3 kilograms per hectare. Kai biomass was also the second highest at 2.5 kilograms per hectare, which was close to the highest biomass in 2013 of 2.6 kilograms per hectare. And Siskiwet lake trout biomass was 3.1 kilograms per hectare, which was comparable to the previous year. And each of these 3 species biomass was above the mean observed since the survey began in 2011. So now we'll go into larval fish collections. And 2 of our larval fish samples were not assessed due to being fouled by just a few insects caught in the Newston net. However, most were relatively clean and were readily processed on board. 2025 had the least number of larval fish collected since 2014, when the larval fish survey began. There was a total of 1,470 collected in the nearshore survey during May and June, and during the offshore survey, there were 92 collected. That gave us a total of 1,562 larval carrageenans that were encountered during the 2025 surveys. We estimate a lake-wide mean biomass of a lake-wide mean of 112 larval carrageenans per hectare, and this is the lowest estimate since the survey began. If we look at this monthly, we can see that each month was relatively low, as expected, with what I just showed you. June was the lowest that we have seen during our sampling period. May and July were both the second lowest. And this was a stark contrast from the boom that we saw in 2022, which you can see evidence in June and July totals. Regions with the highest larval fish abundance estimates are shown on this map, with the large red circles indicating larger catches. And you can see that these areas focus on the Apostle Islands and near Nipigon Bay. The small blue dots, which especially those of you towards the back can probably barely see, are areas or stations where there were no larval fish collected. And if we go into our age 1 carrageenans, this just noting that this is heading into Rock Harbor in Isle Royale under some relatively heavy wildfire smoke from Canadian wildfires. So here we have lake-wide abundance of age 1 carrageenans. and they ranged from 1 to near 0 fish per hectare in 2025. Age 1 kai were the most abundant at 1.15 fish per hectare, followed by lake whitefish at 0.95, bloater at 0.67, and cisco at a dismal 0.01 fish per hectare. Age 1, bloater, cisco, and kai were absent from 80 stations, as you can see here indicated by the small gray circles in 2025 and present at 25. So each one of these little pies represents the proportion of the species that were caught at each one of these stations. Cisco were only collected, age 1 cisco were only collected at one station in the northeastern region, which you can see right here, this one little sliver. Bloater were seen at 9 stations as shown in pink, and kai were at 15 stations as shown in the light green, which were all focused mainly in the offshore survey, which is what we would expect. And again, the smaller gray circles just represent regions or stations where no age 1 cragganines were caught. So just to briefly wrap up the 2025 summary, over the 47-year history of the U.S. Geological Survey's Lake Superior Nearshore Fish Community Survey, total estimated biomass density of benthic and demersal fish species combined has largely been driven by the recruitment of bloater, cisco, and lake whitefish. In 2025, nearshore fish biomass density estimates were higher than the recent 10-year average and lower than the near record biomass density estimates in 2023, which was dominated by the 2022 year class of cisco. As the 2022 year class of cisco matures and exhibits more pelagic behavior, they are likely to be less susceptible to our bottom trawl sampling gear. And offshore fish biomass density estimates in 2025 were above average for deepwater sculpin and kai and similar to the long-term average for cisco at lake trout. And age 1 and larval cisco abundances did remain low in 2025. And if we look forward to this year, we intend to complete our standard status and trend surveys, both in nearshore and offshore, noting that during the offshore, with this being our CSMI year, we are adding on an additional 20 stations. Additional studies include phase 3 of the live capture work, which will again occur in the Apostle Islands region, with primary focus on kai and bloater. And I do intend to spend some time collecting cisco in addition to the kai and bloater to be able to compare to previous years of that alouette survey. And if you want to chat about the alouette, we can do that at a break or something. I will be collaborating with UW Stevens Point, the Northern Aquaculture Demonstration Lab, to complete this alouette live capture work this year. CSMI work will also be occurring, although the details are still being coordinated. We intend to complete a multi-trophic level survey, utilization of acoustics, and the evaluation of the effect of the 2022 cohort of cisco on other trophic levels. And I also intend to continue to assist with capturing and tagging cisco with Grand Portage with Ryan Grow. And with that, my email is listed here, and you can either email me questions or I have, I think, a minute and a half for questions.